week's episode of Durarara, the mystery of the Hollywood killer is finally revealed. The Orihara twins have a makeout session, and there's a Russian assassin by the name of Igor. Yep, just another normal day in Ikebukuro. This week's episode was pretty damn freaky, especially because we were formally introduced to the Hollywood killer, and we pretty much learned everything about her backstory. Yes, her. The Hollywood killer is a female by the name of Ruri Hijiribe, and she happens to be a very famous Japanese pop idol and makeup artist and famous actress. She's pretty much a triple threat. Although, could you add serial killer to the mix? Would that be quadruple threat? Despite the fact that she's a complete and total psychopath, she actually seems like she's a pretty interesting character. She's basically the yin to Kousaka's yang, and that's because they have a really tense confrontation in this week's episode, because of all people, it's the robotic Kousaka who actually ends up saving her after she was knocked across town by his older brother. And there's this scene where Shinra ends up healing her and helping her out, but he doesn't really have to do much, because apparently this girl does have some sort of accelerated healing abilities. She's basically like Wolverine, and she's kind of almost on the same level of Celti, although she hasn't really displayed any real crazy powers yet outside of the whole healing factor. As soon as Shinra leaves, Rory immediately goes on the attack and gets right on top of Kousaka, and is getting prepared to kill him. And this is probably, I think, the best scene of this week's episode, because you really get to see how similar these characters are and how different they are, and I especially love the metaphor they used at the end of it. But this actually kind of goes in line with the whole backstory of Rory's character, who she grew up in a very strict household, and she wasn't allowed to do certain things, and she was able to sort of live out her fantasies by watching horror movies. She was obsessed with them because she was able to basically see the things that she could never do. And years later, her parents eventually died, and her entire family and fortune and house burned to the ground. And in a way, this freed her. This allowed her to do exactly what she wanted, which is to be a makeup artist, to be an amazing idol, and to cut people's freaking heads off. Yeah, she's kind of insane, and while she's talking to Kousaka, she basically asks him, is he afraid to die? And he responds with something that's really interesting, which is, well, I'm pretty much prepared to die, and it could happen. I would regret the fact, though, that I wouldn't have any sort of emotion when I die. And that's when he explains that's why he became an actor, so that he could come closer to the human experience, to human emotions. And a lot of this could have to do with the fact that his brother is just living emotion, pure and simple, and he himself is not that at all. And this really messes with Rory's head as well. She almost even sort of thinks that he's trying to come on to her, but that's when she sort of realizes that she's a human who's trying to become a monster, and Kousaka is a monster who's trying to become a human. And then she breaks down in tears, and this is eventually when I'm guessing they kind of become friends at this point. And you can actually see in the intro of the show, they are riding together in the car. That could be directly this scene right here, or be hinting at a relationship between these two, which does make sense. But he does manage to get her sneaked out with the use of creating this like fake tabloid story where they're kissing, which totally destroyed Togas's dreams. That one short, like 2-second shot of him looking at the newspaper and crying, that was pretty damn funny. And then that brings us to the Orihara twins, who, again, just always manage to surprise me with how ridiculous they are. And I love the fact that they actually do have a really good relationship with their brother, because everybody pretty much always has it out for Izaya, but they seem to get along with him great. And then there's this one scene later in the episode where the Orihara twins are just walking down the street, and Mayra tries to cheer up her sister by straight up just making out with her. And this isn't just like a peck on the cheek. They're totally grabbing each other full on, and it's just, what the hell is with these characters? And I'm not even sure what to make of this scene. It leaves me with a weird set of emotions. All I know is this other gang comes over, they're getting ready to beat up on them, and that's when Kadota and them come in, and he headbutts this one guy in this scene, which is so awesome. I especially love the animation of the blood coming through his cloth. I think that's really cool. And the other parts of this episode, which again, I've compared Durarara to a Tarantino movie, because they jump around all the time. I like how a lot of the events of this episode, with Shinra going to the sushi shop and healing up Igor, the Russian assassin who's been actually trying to kill Ruri, he goes back to his apartment, and that's actually when he ends up getting caught in the shadow cocoon. I really love how they always go back and forth in between time. I just think that's really clever. Otherwise, this was a pretty damn good episode right here. So what's the rundown on this week's episode of Durarara? This is a series that is carried by the strength of its characters, and this series has a pretty amazing cast. And I love the fact that even when they introduce new characters, they always seem like they fit right in. And this Hollywood killer, I really didn't expect that they were going to get into it this soon. And that's really what the episode opened up with, like, immediately, the entire backstory of this character. And I thought that was pretty intriguing as well. And just the fact that she's actually worked with Kousaka before, like in that one vampire movie and everything that they mentioned at the beginning. You know, she's had a relationship with this person before. I think that's really interesting as well. And just to have Kousaka come back, because, you know, he was used pretty sparingly in the first season, and it looks like he might be a little more important here. The series also manages to make a lot of room for humor, despite the fact that things can get pretty dark from time to time, as especially with the characters of Erica and Walter when they're walking down the street, and Kadota's getting really pissed at them because they're constantly talking about anime, so they decide to switch the conversation over to figures, which technically could be anime, maybe it's not, maybe it's 2.5D according to Walter. It seems like that. There's like little scenes like that sprinkled throughout the whole show. Just watching Shingen spin around in his chair when he's talking to his son is hilarious, and then finding out that, oh shit, he's kind of actually onto what's going on right now. So there's so much going on in this series, and so many little story arcs and subplots, and I really like that they're focusing on some of the underused characters and a lot of the new ones as well, because they're just as interesting, I think, as the previous season. In terms of the animation, artwork, everything's pretty standard here, just good, high-quality stuff that you'd expect from Durarara. It's got its own little certain style going for it, and it works really well for this type of series. The soundtrack, as always, is amazing, and it's just got an excellent voice cast. Really, this was just a really nice-looking episode with the introduction of a really creepy character who is apparently really strong, especially the way she's just spinning that dumbbell on her finger at the end and has the creepiest smile on her face. And I almost feel like she's almost being pushed even further to be more of a killer at this point. Like, it almost seems like her ability, like, to survive all this stuff and get away with it is almost, like, justified the fact that she can get away with murder. And I think that's really creepy and disturbing, and I can't wait to see it boil over as this season continues. So, I loved this episode. I thought it was a really high-quality episode of Durarara, so I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5. I really dug it, and if you've been following the series, I think you should check this one out. It's pretty freaking important, and it's got a lot of creepy imagery, lots of funny moments, and tons of great character interactions from the Durarara cast, which is huge and awesome and crazy. Thank you guys for watching my review. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and like the video. And before you guys leave, please tell me what you thought about this week's episode of Durarara. Did you guys have a favorite scene? What did you think about the Hollywood killer? And what do you want to see from the rest of the second season of Durarara? Before you guys leave, please subscribe to our channel if you have not already. You can do that by clicking on the channel icon right up here. You can also follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. But remember, the best way to help out our channel is to simply watch our videos, like them, share them with your friends. You get it, guys. So thank you again for watching. Super Kami Guru 9000 out.